I have a lot to say. Before I rant about this episode, let me talk about all the things I liked about it. I was dying of laughter when the Child Emperor said King is one of our key fighters. Knowing who King really is, I just find that entire statement incredibly ironic and I found it incredibly hilarious. I will say I do find the whole idea of a quote-unquote traitor being in the ranks to be a very interesting subplot, but I do wonder if there is in fact a traitor in the Hero Association. When all the S-class rank heroes came into the scene, I loved the music playing in the background. It did feel like the Avengers were well and truly assembling. My goodness, Fubuki was so well drawn in this episode. I know they slightly redrew her art from the PV trailer into the anime, but both versions are well drawn in my opinion. I really like this animated shot of Fubuki, the hair motion, very nice and fluid. And not just Fubuki, but even Tornado is so unbelievably well drawn. And not just Fubuki and Tornado, but even Royal Ripper. Some of those close-up shots of Royal Ripper being an absolute menace to Taru were incredibly frightening in my opinion. It well and truly feels like JC staff have their favorites when it comes to well-drawn shots of certain characters. I feel so bad for Teru. This poor little boy got caught up in this entire mess, and the voice actor crying out the way they did was honestly heartbreaking in my opinion. And speaking of Teru, even he had some pretty nice character animation as Garu came in to save the little boy. And we had motion. It was moving, dude. The way Garu just came in and attacked Ripper was honestly pretty cool in my opinion. And the animation, it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was fine. Very short in my opinion. I do not think Ripper is completely gone. I do believe this is going to be the beginning of round 2, and episode 5 will be Garu versus Royal Ripper, the second battle. That is just my theory as an anime only. But sadly, that is all the praise I have to give this episode. Let's talk about the negatives. As soon as the opening theme song ended, I was like, yikes. It feels like the studio were very well aware that this episode was barely going to have any animation or movement. So what better way to stimulate the audience than to rewind the highlights of the Garu and Ripper fight in the previous episode. But honestly, that wasn't the worst part of this entire opening sequence. As Garu was getting up, the scene cuts from this shot to him standing up and looking fine. It feels like a couple of seconds were cut from this episode. It was a very bad editing choice in my opinion. It honestly felt like an error in my opinion. And honestly, there were a lot of other pretty bad editing choices in this episode. While Fubuki has some pretty nice drawings and some nice subtle character animation, I think this entire scene is quite bad in my opinion. The slow zoom out on this still image of the characters barely moving, and then it awkwardly cuts to Saitama's disappointed look, who looks exactly how I looked as I was watching this episode. Oh man, I feel like this entire scene was a disaster in my opinion. Normally these slice of life moments in Saitama's house are quite entertaining, but I was honestly quite bored with it. Apart from our gal Fubuki, most of the artwork was incredibly flat, stiff, and lifeless. Just really bad editing and really poor pacing in this entire sequence. Sorry guys, but I think that scene was trash in my opinion. Dude, the King's run cycle was so unbelievably awkward, janky, and just not really visually appealing in my opinion. I think the choice of colors in this shot is honestly disgusting. I hate the orange and the pink and the purple. Usually the background colors more or less correlate to the character's emotions, yet the colors are so wacky in this moment. It just makes me sick to look at it. And of course, most of the episode is filled with slideshows, moving up, down, left and right with barely any motion. And we cannot forget about Smurf Garu. Don't understand why the lighting is that blue. The teaser's lighting made so much sense. I don't understand why they decided to have him in a blue filter. Very odd choice in my opinion. While this episode did have some pretty nice moments, it was a big fat letdown in my opinion. I'll give them one more praise. They did at least fix the Garu walking scene, because that episode 1 walking scene was pretty bad in my opinion. Watching this episode made me realize that yeah, I'm not going to expect any more greatness from these slice of life moments, especially after my third rewatch of the Chainsaw Man vs. Ark movie, where that had a lot of really nice subtle character animation. Coming from that to this is literally night and day. One could say that they are saving all their energy for the action animation, but after watching season 3 episode 3 of One Punch Man, I don't think I am going into the future episodes with any high expectations, because mate, if the action scenes look anything like this, then oh my goodness, One Punch Man season 3 episode 5 may end up being yet another major disappointment, and the disappointment may only get worse as the series goes on. The first 3 episodes of season 1 had an 8.3, 8.5 and 8.7 out of 10 for the first 3 episodes of that season. The first 3 episodes for season 2 had a 7.9, 8.3 and 8.8 out of 10, and for the underwhelming season 3 we have a 5.7, a 6.1 and a 5.9 out of 10. My goodness, looking at these ratings and how low they are is not a good look for the new season. I'll be honest, for the first 2 episodes I was defending the series a little bit. Yeah, there were issues, but I was like, let's wait and see for episode 3. And now that we got episode 3 and now episode 4, yes, One Punch Man season 3 is well and truly cooked. I feel like some of the lack of animation and just slideshows really feels incredibly distracting. Honestly, a bit of a mess in my opinion. Honestly, this might be my least favorite episode of the season so far. The story is actually quite interesting in my opinion. I think I'm going to be sticking with One Punch Man season 3 mainly for the story. Yes, the Garou action sequence towards the end did look pretty nice in my opinion, but let's be real. I feel like if we are cheering for such a small, tiny animated sequence in a show called One Punch Man, a shonen anime whose main draw is showcasing cool action animation, then I think the One Punch Man season 3 anime is cooked. I honestly do feel bad for Shinpai Nagai and the artists and animators at JC Staff, because I can't help but feel like if they had a better schedule, had more time to animate, and weren't rushed, then I do think One Punch Man season 3 could have looked a little bit better than whatever this episode is. It honestly makes me want to read the manga, because at least the artwork looks nice there, but honestly the way this episode was paced out and the editing was not to my liking at all. It was clunky, uninspired and extremely janky in my opinion. Let us hope that One Punch Man season 3 episode 5 will at least be somewhat better than whatever I just saw in One Punch Man season 3 episode 4. Tell me in the comments down below, what do you guys think of all of this? Tell me, like this video, subscribe for more One Punch Man videos, as well as other anime news updates, reviews, comparisons, breakdowns, rankings and more. Thank you for watching. The Second Boy Dude signing out.